The Gunas, expressions of energy. The Gunas represent the manifestation of consciousness in the form of existence, ranging from the subtlest forms of thought and higher consciousness to the most substantial kinds of physical matter. They are the energetic expressions of the essential qualities and attributes of all life. We define each of the three gunas by its action or process of movement in the continuous flow of ascending, expanding, descending, and contracting. These actions lay out a guide for us to understand the harmonic flow and turbulent flux that is present in nature and in ourselves. The gunas move in cycles that circulate around us through our outer environment and within us through our mind and body, always changing to move towards growth or decay, which results in a struggle for dominance or balance. When we fully understand the effects of the gunas and are in a state of conscious awareness, we can change our thoughts and actions to achieve a state of peace and harmony. As we move to understand the gunas, it's important to recognize that they are not some mystical philosophy that was relevant only in ancient India. Instead, they are a significant systematic guide to our physical and emotional attributes, a way to understand the self for the purpose of living a more conscious and healthy life. I think this description will make a lot more sense once we dive into the attributes of each guna and break down this philosophical map. The three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva, to be. Balanced breathing. Parasympathetic or ventral vagal complex. Ascending. Presence. Consciousness. Compassion. Sattva, which sits at the top of the guna hierarchy, is our energetic vibration that is most often expressed as balance and harmony. The best way to think of sattva is as the mode to be, so the qualities arise from a place of tranquility and contentment. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do, and nothing outside of here and now. This affinity towards presence gives rise to a higher state of consciousness and awareness that leads to joy, love, and compassion. Here we learn that happiness comes from within. Sattva is always seeking the truth, which is the present moment, and therefore represents ascending movement and growth, specifically spiritual growth and evolution. And it is when we are most balanced that we can reach our highest potential. The sattva guna is related to a healthy functional autonomic nervous system. The sattva guna works mainly with the ventral vagal complex of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is, as discussed earlier, the state of healthy social engagement. Most autonomic nervous system dysfunctions are a result of chronic stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, so releasing the stress factors that cause excessive sympathetic tone and increasing parasympathetic tone will bring our autonomic nervous system into a sattvic state. Rajas, to do, inhalation or fast breathing. The sympathetic nervous system, expansion, passion, work and play, goal orientation. As sattva ascends through the cycle of the gunas, it naturally moves into the second guna, rajas. Rajas is the energy of expansion, always moving outward towards exhaustion. Rajas is the mode to do. We always want to be busy and moving towards something. Our motivation, goals, and accomplishments come from this type of energy. In a healthy flow, rajas is essential for daily life. It gets us up and moving. When we balance rajas with sattva, we are playful, passionate, sensual, and full of joy. But without sattva, rajas moves towards its dark side. This goal-oriented energy becomes obsessed with pleasure-seeking, which can lead to addiction. We become greedy, selfish, and egocentric. Rajas is restless and easily dissatisfied. We are biologically designed to seek pleasure, but never be satisfied. Every goal we accomplish comes with a fleeting feeling of satisfaction that is quickly replaced with a need to do more. Our inability to find a lasting resolve is the dilemma of trying to find happiness in our achievements. Rajas correlates to the sympathetic nervous system. Together, they work to motivate and move us to explore the vast array of beauty this world has to offer. When we remain in rajas for too long, the always doing state chronically stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. We can feel like we are giving a lot of effort but not seeing results, so we continue to spin our wheels without going anywhere, perpetuating the feeling of not doing enough or being good enough. Rajas is associated with fire, and as the fire burns itself out, it descends to the final gunas, tamas. Tamas, to have. Exhalation, slow breathing. Parasympathetic, dorsal vagal complex. Descending and contraction. Grounding, relaxation, recovery. Tamas is at the bottom of the guna cycle, but it shares equal importance with rajas. As rajas moves into expansion, tamas brings it back, first by grounding and then by gathering. It is the descending and contracting movement that polarizes rajas and completes the flow. A healthy state of tamas is vital to balancing the overactive rajasic energy. It acts as a brake and allows us to practice restraint and self-control. As we slow down, we begin to move into a state of rest and recovery. The descending energy progresses to the bottom of the circle, where it loops back to meet the ascending sattvic energy on the upward curve, and this synergy allows us to heal and repair. The mode for tamas is to have. Unlike rajas, which is obsessed with getting more, tamas wants to hoard everything it has. Having and not wanting more makes us lazy and lethargic. When we remain in tamas for too long, we start to develop illness, pain, and other health issues. Tamas is the guna of death, which is why it sits at the bottom of the guna totem pole. Tamas correlates with the dorsal vagal complex of the parasympathetic nervous system. As discussed earlier, the dorsal vagal complex regulates the functions of our abdominal organs below the diaphragm, promotes states of deep relaxation, and is responsible for the freeze response. Together, tamas and the dorsal vagal complex facilitate stillness, grounding, and tranquility. But when we stay in this state too long, the imbalance leads to apathy, dullness, digestive issues, and overeating. Tamas then continues to contract, and the emotional dysfunctions of the dorsal vagal complex lead us to feel alienated and depressed. The cycles of the gunas. The three aspects represented by the gunas share a common thread with many Eastern teachings that lead away from consumerism and productivity as primary goals. Instead, the gunas emphasize balance and presence. In Western culture, the rajas mode, to do, is the prominent topic of many motivational speakers and self-help experts who inspire us to move towards goals and accomplishments as if these achievements will make us happy. Our modern consumer culture aligns with the tamasic mode of to have that asserts stuff and comfort equal happiness. While both of these modes are necessary and nothing is wrong or evil with either to do or to have, the mode of to be is the only one in which we find pure joy and contentment. The gunas self-divide into three aspects. The mental aspect governs thinking and logic. The emotional aspect regulates mood, affect, and desire. The physical aspect controls the body. We can express different gunas at the same time through these aspects of the self. For example, the mental aspect can be in rajas, the emotional aspect can be in sattva, and the physical aspect can be in tamas. We might simultaneously experience all three gunas as we try to go to sleep. Emotionally, we can feel as though we are in a balanced state of sattva. Our bodies can be physically exhausted from a long day and deep in tamas, ready for sleep and recovery. Yet we might lie awake for hours, unable to sleep because our minds are busy in rajas, thinking about our to-do lists for the next day. Of the gunas being expressed, we generally have a dominant guna, which depends on which aspect of the self is being emphasized. Each guna is in movement, forced by the natural polarity of ascending and descending, expanding and contracting to search for balance. And it is through this movement that the gunas form cycles. These cycles are divided into three time frames: daily through a 24-hour period, monthly following the 28-day moon cycle, and yearly following the seasons. We track the daily cycle from when we wake up until when we go to sleep, although the Guna cycle continues even as we move through REM sleep, light sleep, and deep sleep. The daily cycle is the most prominent of the three and therefore the easiest to track. During this cycle, the average person remains in each guna for approximately 2 hours before entering the next guna. As you become more aware of your gunas, you'll be able to control which guna you're in longer, especially once you learn how to influence your gunas through breathing exercises, which is the easiest and quickest way to change them. Sattva guna is where we experience the most spiritual growth, awareness, and intelligence, so naturally, we want to be in this guna the longest. But because Sattva's mode is to be, this state is incredibly challenging to maintain. The longer we practice presence, the stronger the urge to move and be active becomes. This is especially true in the mental aspect of self, which gravitates toward rajas faster than the emotional and physical aspects. Sattva ascends until we reach the energetic height of our conscious limit. It then flows into rajas, where rajas expands outward. People with an abundance of energy, excitement, and joy tend to be able to maintain rajas energy for long periods. Once our energy is exhausted, rajas falls towards tamas to rest and recover. If we push too hard and too long in rajas, then the fall to tamas lands with a big crash, from which it can take a long time to recover. Overexertion extends the rajas and tamas cycles and shortens our ability to maintain a sattvic state. Tamas gathers energy to recharge the batteries and make repairs. People who can sit still in meditation or deep relaxation for a long time are able to maintain an extended healthy state of tamas. Once we restore our energy and feel rejuvenated, we move back into sattva and the cycle begins again. But if rest and recovery become laziness and lethargy, then it generally takes a strong push from rajas to pull us out, and we completely skip the sattvic state. Many people spend the majority of their daily cycle in the inactivity that is encompassed by the tamasic state. You can also bounce back and forth between being in rajas and tamas without ever experiencing sattva. This happens when we become so focused on doing and having that we forget about being and enjoying. Ideally, we learn how to balance rajas and tamas as well as use these energies in positive ways that bring benefits to our lives and needs. Then we can increase our ability to maintain a sattvic state and remain in the true happiness that comes from within. To use the gunas as a tool to understand your energetic cycle and affect this cycle to improve your life, I think it's helpful to start by noticing which guna you are in when you wake up. If you wake up feeling rested and balanced, then you're in the sattva guna. If you wake up with a ton of energy, ready to take on the day, then you're in rajas. If you wake up and you hit snooze 5 times, force yourself out of bed, and can't talk to anyone until you've had your coffee, you're in tamas. I prefer to wake up in sattva because I do my meditation first thing in the morning and then a pranayama practice that brings me into rajas so I feel energized for my morning yoga practice and daily activities. I also try to go to sleep in a sattva tamas state. If you are going to sleep in tamas, you want to guide yourself into this guna by doing breathing exercises and relaxation techniques. It's generally not good to go to sleep feeling tamasic because you have exhausted all your rajasic energy. Usually, if you go to sleep in tamas because you're exhausted, you'll also wake up in tamas feeling exhausted. Rajas is the worst energy to try to fall asleep in, especially when the mental aspect is in rajas but the physical body is in tamas. This is a prevalent state for people under stress, the body being exhausted without the mind stopping spinning. The daily cycle is influenced by the underlying pull of the monthly and yearly cycles, much like the waves and tides of the ocean will alter the course of a boat, but not necessarily change its direction. We feel a gradual change from one guna to another, with each guna lasting 7 to 14 days, but one guna can also span an entire month. The transitions of the gunas through the monthly cycle match the physical and emotional changes that women go through during their menstrual cycle, with tamas being the most dominant during their period. Men also feel the effects of the gunas changing in the monthly cycle as the moon affects all of us, but in general, women are affected more by the monthly cycle and men are affected more by the yearly cycle. The yearly cycle also has a general pull on how we experience the daily guna cycle. This influence on the gunas correlates with the change of the seasons and the length of the days. Longer, warmer days give us more rajasic energy, and shorter, cooler days give us more tamasic energy. The yearly cycle has a more substantial effect in places where there are more dramatic changes in seasons, and it is less apparent in areas where the climate is more temperate.